traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com.
This hourly segment is brought to you by Health Quest Radio with Dr. David Kolbaba. Saturday mornings at 11. Visit healthquestradio.com.
Now, from the Signature Bank Studios, this is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft on AM 560. The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here, and we didn't really get to it in depth. Talking about Tucker Carlson's interview with Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian. He received a lot of criticism for that interview to Tucker Carlson because it was perceived to be a rather softball interview in which you got completely uncredible answers to questions like the regime's posture of promoting death to America.
Many Americans are afraid of Iran. You say you're not afraid, but Americans are afraid of Iran, and they believe that Iran would like to strike the United States with a nuclear weapon. They see video of Iranians saying death to America, describing our country as the great Satan. What is your opinion of that? Should we be afraid of Iran?
I believe that this is a very wrong impression that anybody might have of Iran or the Iranians. I would like to remind you that Iran has never invaded another country in the last 200 years. When they say death to the United States, it doesn't mean death to, they don't mean death to the people of the United States or even to the officials of the United States. They mean death to crimes, death to killing and carnage, death to supporting killing others, death to insecurity.
I was impressed that Tucker was able to keep from laughing. Yeah, death to America can be interpreted so many different ways. Death to killing others. So you're opposed to killing others. You want to explain the Marine barracks bombing in '83? That wasn't asked. And on fatwas and assassination attempts against Trump, you know, there's an Iranian plot that was spoiled last year. Assassination plot. Well, this was the answer to that question.
2 Iranian ayatollahs have issued fatwas against Donald Trump. What does that mean exactly, and what do you think of it?
To the best of my knowledge, they have not issued decrees or fatwas against any individual or against Donald Trump. And first off, it has nothing to do with the Iranian government or to His Eminence, the Supreme Leader of Iran. Or what they actually meant by the fatwa was in condemnation of an insult to a religion or religious personalities, and they were actually saying that this is deplorable, this is unacceptable. So it was not directed towards the U.S. president or any other individual, and there might be people with their own ideas and opinions, but I can assure you that the meaning of this fatwa should not be construed or considered as a threat against any individual.
Has Iran ever backed an assassination attempt against Donald Trump?
This is actually what Netanyahu is trying to insinuate and to make your people or the president of your country to believe. But this is wrong because Netanyahu, as I said, has its own agenda. It wants to drag the U.S. into forever wars, as I said, and to bring more insecurity, instability, and unrest to the whole region.
Yeah, no, right. The assassination attempts are just a fever dream of Benjamin Netanyahu. I tell you, this guy could be well, I mean, he sounds like Nicole Hannah-Jones talking about theft as symbolic takings. It's the the spin is really something. On that last score, he wasn't pressed on it really beyond the predicate question. So no fatwas. It's just been and no assassination attempts. The Middle East Media Research Institute reporting that an Iranian movement has raised more than $40 million for the assassination of President Donald Trump. As the country's senior religious clerics, who this is not coming from, according to the Iranian president, the senior religious clerics in Iran, every cell of resistance in the West is charged with carrying out this sentence. Iranian leaders recently issued 2 death warrants against Trump, deemed him an enemy of Allah who must be killed. Those calls prompted the creation of a new organization dubbed the Blood Covenant, which claims to have raised nearly $40.3 million for the president's assassination. The Blood Covenant, as it's called, operates under the aegis of the Iranian regime. So then there's that. Even as at the same time, the Iranians want to reopen negotiations about their nuclear program, but only if there's a promise that there'll be no more American strikes against said nuclear program. For more on this topic and many others, actually, today, Stephen Bucci joins us. He served America for 3 decades as an Army Special Forces officer and top Pentagon official, now a visiting fellow in the Heritage Foundation's Allison Center for Foreign Policy Studies. Stephen, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
It's always my pleasure to be back on the show. Thanks for having me.
That was, yes, that was some effort at agitprop from the Iranian president there, Mr. Pezeshkian. But where do things actually stand between the United States and Iran in the wake of the strikes and the suggestion that talks may resume?
Well, first of all, this guy is, at Baghdad Bob levels of delusional lying to say that, well, we say death to America, but that's not really what we mean.
Yeah.
First of all, that feeds perfectly into the minds of a lot of folks here in America, because I remember hearing that after 9/11. Well, we shouldn't really try and attack Al-Qaeda. That they don't really mean that they want to kill all of us. No, that's exactly what they said, and that's exactly what they did on 9/11, and they still wanted to do it afterwards. This is the same deal here.
I remember, sorry to interrupt, but I remember, the Obama administration's posture was that they all just needed middle manager jobs at tech companies and then they'd stop.
Yeah, exactly. It's crazy. So, I understand why the Iranians are saying this, because it's worked before. I don't think it's going to work with this administration or the majority of the American people any longer. We know these guys want to kill us. They're back on their heels right now because of what Israel has done to their proxies and to them. And then, the coup de grace being our attack there on their buried nuclear sites. They badly want some respite so that they can both start the program again with whatever is left. We don't know exactly what that is yet. And to get, to try and reopen the windows of heaven that Barack Obama opened, Trump closed, and Biden reopened again, and now they're closed again, because that's the only way they can survive.
So we don't have that assessment of the impact of the airstrikes yet. That we're still waiting for that. Then we don't know what's left of their nuclear program, if anything.
That we don't know publicly. I hope the government is starting to get closer and closer to knowing, with the help of Israeli human intelligence. But
so I mean, just starting from that premise, is there anything we have to discuss at this moment with the Iranians?
I don't think so. No. Unless it's them say, hey, come in, let's do a transparent inspection, not just use intelligence. Come in, look at everything. That would be something that we'd be willing to talk to them about, and probably even help them start moving rubble away. that sort of thing. We could help with that. Look, we don't want a war with Iran. If we'd wanted a war with Iran, we could have hit a lot more targets than just the nuclear sites. This was a one-time strike to remove those threatening facilities. We did it. Now we're done. But we're going to watch them. And we've told them, you start again, we're going to hit you again. The Israelis have said that. Yeah, we think we got everything, but we're going to watch them. And if we see any evidence, the strikes are going to start, even though we've said we've got a peace agreement, because that would be a violation of the peace agreement for them to start that program again. But the Iranians are, they are master liars. If you ask anybody from that region, that the leadership of Iran, particularly this administration, have been the best negotiators, which is another way of saying the best liars in that part of the world, for the whole region. Nobody wants to negotiate with them because they know they're going to lose.
Well, I mean, I got to say, Pezeshkian, not the most impressive liar I've ever heard. It was very convincing.
Agreed. He's taken the route, the Baghdad Bob route of, no, don't believe what you see, believe what I'm telling you. And we're going, dude, there's a tank behind you. Mm-hmm. This is the same level of that.
Mostly peaceful Iran. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly.
I want to get to your take on the state of affairs in Ukraine. I mean, the Wall Street Journal reporting over the weekend, never-ending supply of drones has frozen the front lines in Ukraine. There's more sort of talk about this ending badly in the not-too-distant future. And then in the Pentagon, the Pentagon's top policy guy, Albridge Colby, penned a memo that pushes to refocus U.S. military on countering China and away from arms requests that Ukraine is making, despite what the president said about the need to rearm Ukraine, because Putin is, turns out, not a good faith negotiator. Where does it stand on both counts of the additional arms to Ukraine to support their efforts to at least hold the Russians at bay, and frankly, the prospect that they'll be able to hold the Russians at bay from taking Kiev for very much longer?
It's not looking good in my mind. Our cutoff of support for that, the logistical support, not sending American troops, not sending American aircraft with our pilots in it, but the logistical support has been what's allowed Ukraine to continue the fight. If the decision is made with finality that we're going to not do that anymore, Ukraine's in deep trouble, and we will have thrown a massive lifeline to Vladimir Putin, who, frankly, is not at the top of his game. His military is been shown to be pretty useless, except against a much smaller opponent that he's just pummeled for years now. This is just not the time to back off. I don't think we should accelerate, like start sending American troops, anything like that. But I also don't think we have to. We could continue to support them logistically. I think if there's a problem with our supplies that we're worried about being able to fight China and supply this, well, maybe we need to crank up the defense industrial base. Making ammunition is not the same as building tanks and ships. We could crank up the ammunition outflow relatively easily compared to, we need another 10 naval vessels. That's going to take us a while. So we need to figure out, President Trump needs to figure out what the policy is. Not, with all due respect to the Pentagon policy people, that he's a great guy. He was a great choice for it, but he doesn't make the decisions, right? President Trump does. And we need to know what that decision is so that we can weigh in publicly as to whether the American people thinks that's the right decision or not. But right now, we're kind of left in the dark. We're not sure. We know he's getting impatient with Putin, and should, because Putin's a liar and he's not a good negotiating partner. He's right in there with the Iranians. And they're not the 10 feet tall giants we used to think they are, but we got to decide how much we want to put on the table as we play this game.
The Journal, again, opining on the state of America's defense, saying that despite the gaudy $1 trillion defense budget for FY 2026, that actually Trump isn't rebuilding the military. They write the B-2 bombers are nearly 30 years old. The U.S. has only 19 of them in service. The military is in worse shape than President Trump claims, and he's ducking the second-term rearmament he promised, so they argue, and they take shipbuilding as another example. 2026 request asks for mere 3 U.S. Navy ships, so the fleet is 60 short of its goal to deter China. So, is it a case of not spending efficiently? Is it a case of years of disinvestment that require us to catch up? Or is the Journal just wrong that Trump isn't rebuilding the military as promised?
I think he's setting the conditions to restart the rebuild. I know that sounds kind of convoluted, but it's a lot more than just saying, okay, we need 25 more ships. Go build 25 more ships. This is not the latter part of World War II where we just cranked out ships, in 3 days. We don't have the facilities to build them. We can build them, but at a very, very slow rate. I think I've told you before, there's only one factory in all of the United States that can build a tank. One. And that's, that's not Trump's fault. That's been there for a long time that way. And we're trying to get past that. So I believe he's setting the conditions. You do have to spend the money to get the system to change. It doesn't just change and then 10 years later, you get to pay the bill. So I think I'm glad that the Journal is pushing him and wanting him to do more, but I think they've overstated their case here. I don't think he's betraying anything. I don't think he's pulling a fast one. I think it's just going to take a while to see any sort of tangible movement in that regard.
What did you make of the State Department's performance over the weekend, or back, I should say, when there were these layoffs that have now been green lighted, and you saw in the State Department too all these signs about resisting fascism, and it's just in like very sort of high schoolish, your work makes an impact, homemade signs, and they're applauding people and hugging people as they're exiting their positions and stuff. I mean, it struck me. I don't want to make more of it than it is, but it struck me as particularly undignified, and also more evidence that these intel agencies and the larger superstructure still very politicized.
For the last point, 100%. The State Department, the various parts of the intel community, and even some levels of DOD it's the wokeness, the leaning towards the left. Those folks have become pretty deeply embedded, and they're not all gone. The State Department. I'd like to point out that in my almost 30-year active duty career, the military underwent about 3 or 4 reductions in force with various leadership. At the end of Vietnam, we had a huge one. We had one under Clinton. We had others, and people got fired, right? They were good serving people with wonderful records, but the word came down, hey, we got to cut some bodies. You guys, when we rack and stack, are at the bottom level, off you go. And people who thought they were good to go for a 20-year career were let go at 13, 14, 15 years. The State Department is not immune to that. I mean, what kind of entitlement is it that this little tiny organization thinks that they can do whatever they want and nobody could ever touch them? I don't have a lot of sympathy for that. And when you see those signs, continue resistance, all that kind of nonsense, it shows you that there are people who needed to go.
Yeah.
And maybe a few more, because they're the ones that have put up the signs are, in some cases, are the ones that are still in there.
Epstein. What I'm sure you've been privy to some of the scuttlebutt that's bandied about. I mean, what is your assessment of the likelihood that he had some sort of ongoing relationship with the CIA?
We're getting the ire over this, the dissatisfaction of seeing no particular action against anybody with regard to this, other than the one lady that they threw in jail, who deserved to be in jail, by the way. But that is brewing some strange things. Are there people in the CIA who may have had connections to Epstein? Yeah, there were a lot of power brokers inside the CIA. Some people, nobody knows, that may have been into that. And that may be a thing. Is the CIA actively supporting Jeffrey Epstein's, endeavors over the years? I don't think so, unless they were using it as a way to recruit people or to influence people, a la the KGB with honeypots and things like that. I don't have any evidence of or knowledge of anybody specifically doing that.
Would it surprise you if he served some sort of useful role for them, that they would turn a blind eye to his illegalities? Would that surprise you?
To be honest with you, no.
Yeah.
I mean, it would surprise me.
Oh, it would surprise you?
Yeah, it would surprise me, because they could do that themselves. Why in the world would they hire on with some, filthy screwball to do it? If they want to set up a honeypot, they can do that. It's in their charter. But to actively work with a criminal like that, nah, I don't. It just doesn't wash with me. It's getting too far down the rabbit hole. And to be honest with you, in my experience, that level of conspiracy is hardly ever true. It's salacious. It's like a movie script, so everybody loves it. But it's usually the people in the government aren't that bright, and that's literally been my experience. I never attribute to a conspiracy anything that I can explain away by incompetence and stupidity, and this would fall in that category.
Stephen Bucci served America for 3 decades as Army Special Forces officer, top Pentagon official, now a visiting fellow in the Heritage Foundation's Allison Center for Foreign Policy Studies. Stephen, thanks as always. Appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. Talk to you next week.
And he joined us on the Turnkey.Pro answer line.
It's like a hot, steaming cup of information to start your day. It's Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Golf legend Jack Nicklaus, the Golden Bear, tennis star Rafael Nadal, and the late great Kobe Bryant. What do they all have in common? They're all recipients of stem cell therapy, using your own body's healing properties to find relief from sports injuries